IG Live, as well as YouTube. We got some YouTube folks. Thanks for sitting tight. Just kind of waiting on some IG people to jump in. Alright, how's my audio here? Let's see. Gotta turn off my monitor off here. Alright, looks like we got some YouTube folks here. Using my iMac camera today is kind of interesting. It seems to adjust as I move. It doesn't seem to stay very consistent, but so the light on my face feels a little hot, but oh well. Oh, there it is. Alright, so if you see me looking up, my reference monitor's above my actual computer. But yeah, we're live now. Should be on YouTube. Anybody here on YouTube? Let me say what's up. Alright. Pretty spotty Wi-Fi today, so I don't know about my IG connection. It might be kind of crazy. Well, let's just go for it. So usually I'm doing Mondays. It feels like it's been a while since I've done one of these, but really only like a week and a half. And we just been starting to get busy again. And if anybody has any audio feedback, let me know. So anyway, I kind of labeled this one. Well, I didn't I did label this one, video production for beginners. But what's kind of funny about that is the way content is changing, and thinking about outputs and stuff. You're always kind of evolving. So it's ever changing. So as far as putting beginner there, it's not to put me above anyone else as far as learning, because I feel like I am constantly learning. And there is always a learning curve with different productions and different type of shoots. And even in this instance, we've been pretty busy shooting videos the last few days on set, as I put it on IG. Wow, the light on YouTube is hot. See, look, I move and it changes. There we go. Maybe I come in a little bit and it'll give me. Oh, there it is. That's a little better. All right. Sorry, I'm looking all over the place. I got so many screens right here. There we go. So really, I'm shooting this from my iMac because I didn't want to unpack all the gear. I threw a couple cameras right. Where is it? Right here. So the YouTube viewers can kind of see the cameras. Anyway, really, I'm not going to list, specifics or anything, just more or less talk about, oh, thanks for jumping in there. There we go. I got pretty spotty Wi-Fi to my phone. What's up, George? Hope you're doing good, dude. We need to get a beer here pretty soon now that things are moving again. But I got pretty spotty Wi-Fi on my live here, so. Oh, what's up, Jared? What's up, man? Hope you guys are doing good. So, shooting this one a little bit different from my desk. So, if you're on IG and you want to check out the YouTube feed, I'll probably show my screen at least once or twice. And you get kind of the whole experience with some intro, outro music. And it's pretty unique. I was just talking about this iMac camera. It's constantly adjusting and chasing my light a little bit. So, I got to mess with that. But, we've been busy shooting the last few days, so, I'm shooting it from my iMac, kind of a different spot I've been doing it from. But with OBS, I can show my screen But anyway, I kind of themed this one video production for beginners. Oh, thanks, bro. I appreciate that, Jared, man. Thank you, man. I always felt the love from you, bro. I see you hitting those weights hard too, man. Nice work, you know. But yeah, so we've been on set the last few days, so you know, I had to delay this one till Wednesday. I'm gonna keep trying to do these every Monday, but I knew as work would pick back up, I'd have to get a little flexible. So I appreciate you guys jumping in. And so, like I said, I labeled this one video. What did I call it? Video production for beginners. And it's more or less, like I said, it's not to put me above anybody else. You know, as far as like this stuff goes, you're always learning, and every production is so different, and that's something to kind of always remember. But there are some key points, you know, that kind of get you to asking the right questions that when you get on set then, or, you know, let's say I say on set in the sense of more, you know, medium to larger productions. But can you guys hear me okay on IG? I got this mic. I got like a 2-mic setup, but you know, even if you're just shooting your own video handheld and you got, you know, maybe you're shooting a video for somebody, you're just picking it up, you know, there's things to kind of think about and remember. You know, one of them always is to plan your shoot. It seems simple. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate the feedback. It seems simple, really, to just say, oh, plan your shoot. But, you know, as we go through a few other little ideas here, you know, you'll see how they come together. And, you know, I've been in almost any environment shooting. An environment, I mean, obviously indoor, outdoor, rooftops, helicopters, music festivals. I mean, you name it. You know, I've been lucky enough to have that experience and that kind of broad range of experience. But like I said, no matter what set you're on, no matter where you're doing, you always got to think about the shoot ahead of time. And I'm kind of jumping in, you know, I say video production for beginners, and really what I mean is pre-production and production, and then maybe a little bit we'll talk about kind of post-production, so we can come full circle. And I'll probably keep this one like 30 minutes or something, but yeah, if you wanted to watch on YouTube, I know a couple of people hit me back and said they really enjoyed, you know, watching the YouTube stream, just because there's a little more to see. You kind of see in the studio a little bit more, especially with this angle. So anyway, just planning your production. So that's pre-production. You know, first of all, what are you making? What is your video about? And the one thing I'd add to that is, you know, who are you trying to reach? Where is this video going to go? And I have in my notes, you know, you want to always think about the deliverables or the deliverable. Maybe it's just one video you're producing. Well, in that case, I would want to think about, you know, where is this going to end up? Like, let's say I'm giving, you know, let's just say I'm making a social video for someone and they want it to go on YouTube and maybe like a cut down to Instagram or something. Well, you know, when I'm thinking about Instagram, I'm thinking that, you know, I'm going to need more of a vertical video. So when I'm shooting for YouTube, you have a traditional 16:9 crop, whereas, you know, Instagram, everything lines up vertical. It's a 9:16 or a 4:5. So when you're framing your shots, I'll show like IG here, and then YouTube, you can see it because it's 16:9. I mean, I'm kind of giving both examples right here just while I'm recording. And so it's like you got to consider those applications. And then too, like, what is the story? You know, what is the point and the message we're trying to get across? And then, you know, there's a lot of other variables with that. But when you're thinking about, you know, once I get on set and I'm shooting this, you know, especially like, let's just, you know, say you're in a videographer and somebody hires you to shoot, you know, like I said, a YouTube video that they're going to want on Instagram. You know, maybe it's, what's an example? What's an example of somebody who would need a video? I didn't even think of an example. You know, I'll just give it in my case. So we're taking more beginning, more of a one-person shoot. You know, let's say it's a local business, you know, and they're trying to get their message out about, you know, let's call it, you know, in the instance we have now, we got this post-pandemic business people are trying to get going again. Well, let's say it's a dentist office or something. Really anything is going to need this, but you know, you got to think about the messages they got to get across. What are their protocols? Who do they want in the shot? what's the script? What are we even going to be hearing? You want to think about your visuals and how, they relate to what the audio is going to be. And then the tone of the video matters. Is it, in this case, it wouldn't be a hype video. Too intensive music might throw off the whole kind of vibe of the video. So, thinking about kind of how you want people to feel, what information you want to get across. And then, the other thing I'd say in pre-production is have an idea about the location and also the lighting. Lighting's a big deal. So in pre-production, you're thinking about how you want to show up and light. And, in this case, I say video for beginners. So really, a small panel light, we use, and maybe I'll show some of this gear, here in a minute. I'll flip over on YouTube and kind of show you my desktop and go through some gear. I want to show off there's a microphone, a pretty affordable microphone you can get. And so anyway, you want some type of lighting. Obviously, you're going to need a camera. In the case of video production for beginners, iPhones are shooting 4K. A lot of people are talking that way when they're talking, giving advice for kind of beginners, I guess. Well, at this point, all of us have some idea. We've either recorded ourselves, recorded somebody else, maybe just recorded for a post, for ourselves, for our own Instagram, for our own feed. And so, I can see a lot of people who aren't really understanding, thinking about pre-production are actually doing it. They just don't realize they're doing it. And that kind of brings me to TikTok. TikTok, you see it a bit in IG stories, but TikTok's really, I saw a tweet, and maybe I can pull it up, but I believe they said TikTok isn't creating the next wave of creators, it's creating the next wave of directors. Let me see if I can find that tweet. That was really interesting when I saw that. And it's a great point, and it brought the point of, really, I don't know if anybody's been in TikTok, but man, I just kind of started getting into it in the last month, and you can spend forever on there because there's so much capabilities. And fixing my cam here. There's so many capabilities and effects, and it really kind of brings a professional, editing suite into an app. It's pretty insane, really. And now you see, I would say young kids especially, just because that's kind of how it always goes. But these young kids with some time on their hands, especially during the pandemic, people got real slick with TikTok. And I think it's where it's at right now. And, mess around with TikTok once, and you'll find yourself thinking about a lot of these things that I'm referring to in pre-production. Oh, cool. What's up, you guys? Thanks for joining. That link on IG is in our bios on YouTube. I'm going to show some desktop stuff. And I think from this angle, I'm going to start doing some like live editing, little cut downs of pieces, and actually showing you some editing. So, but anyway, pre-production, plan your shoot. And I think the reason I want to do this topic is because this is what I've been doing the last week is like, the last 2 days we were on set, shooting some videos for a client. I won't go into it too much as far as like who and what and where, but you can probably hear it in my voice and see it in my eyes that we've been working quite a bit. But you have to think about these things. The worst case is that you end up on set and you don't know what's going on. You haven't asked enough questions, and a lot of times, even from like the producer role, I'm having to ask and dig into a lot of questions. And sometimes what it is people are still kind of figuring out the message they want to translate. So you want to ask like, what is it? You want to bring up those questions, who, what, when, where kind of thing. What's the deliverable? I know a lot of people like hearing this, but, especially people who are controlling content, but what's the distribution? So what's some other, obviously you want to pick the scenes and have an understanding of composition, shot composition, and then, build a little bit of a script and a storyboard. Sometimes in my case, like the client provides a script, They're going to want some type of voiceover over the recording. So, we have to consider like what are the visuals that support the audio, and then what is the mood and tone. Chris says a lot of times the client just doesn't know and can't articulate what they need, and that's a great, thanks for that input. I mean, that's a great point. And so as the person creating the video, you want to ask those questions. And when you get into bigger productions or agency work or brand work, they just know they need something. Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say, as you get into the bigger productions, there's more flushed out roles for each one of these things. But when you're a videographer, young person, content creator, maybe you're not a young person and you're just getting into it, these are the things you want to be thinking about. Obviously, you're going to show up with the camera. Like I said, lighting. You want to make sure you got enough battery, memory cards, stuff like that. But these questions, like Chris said, sometimes they don't know what they need. They just know they need something. And, as the videographer, even just starting, these are the things you want to think about. And the next thing is like, tell the story. You want to think about, an opening shot that brings you in, what the guts of the information are that, your client or whoever requests the video from you, or maybe it's your own video. Think about it for yourself. What is like the message here? What are the shots and message that I'm trying to send? And then what's the ending? How do I wrap this video up? How do I bring it to a close? And you can think about how a story works, right? And that's a good way to think about it. And then, with what those visuals need to be to tell a story, how can I tie those visuals in with a beginning, the information that needs to be in there, and then an end, So here's a fun fact I was just sent from our team. So, our productions have been growing, but we typically have 50 batteries of different varieties on every shoot. And to give you an example, we'll bring batteries obviously for our cameras, multiple cameras usually. We have AA batteries for our recorders, mic batteries. We'll have light panel. Did I say light panel batteries? Light panel batteries. And we bring extra. So if we have a day-long shoot, we pack for that, and we consider that, in some areas we might be shooting more, in other areas we might be shooting less. So we double down. And even on trips, that can get tricky as far as packing, but it's helpful to have, you'd rather come with too much than not have enough. And I know guys that are like really skilled, they know what they're trying to come in and do. They shoot, fairly efficiently for the edit, and they'll show up with like a cam and a battery and a card, and they'll make it happen. But I've probably been always the guy to bring too much instead of not bringing enough. And that's just from my experiences. And like I said, like the variety of types of shoots I've been on. I've been to where I'm like the only guy on the shoot. We need to get the shots, and I'm kind of having to control everything or direct everything, even from, what you could say is just kind of a camera operator standpoint. But and then I've also been on the bigger shoots as like a grip or a PA, where I was doing more of the nitty gritty stuff. And then now in my role, even as somewhat of a director producer. So that was a fun tip about the batteries. So what are these other notes that I kind of put here? So in the case that you don't have lights and you are kind of like restricted based on the equipment you have, think about natural light. When you get to that place that you're going to shoot, find windows, and a lot of businesses have big front windows, or even in your home, or let's say you're just making YouTube videos for yourself, go outside, get kind of a sunset, or early morning light, or the one thing I would say that when you consider shooting, ideally you want your camera to be in the same light as your subject. And that's just kind of a rule of thumb, but also, try those out one of these days when you do get on set. Put your subject real bright in the sun and put yourself in the shade, and see how kind of challenging it is to get those to get a clean shot. So plan that. You're thinking about your deliverables, or where this video is going to end up. And then the way I look at it, and depending on my projects, it calls for 2 different ways to shoot. And you may hear this, if you're talking to editors and stuff, shooter, editors, videographers only. If I'm hiring a camera operator, they got to be thinking about the edit all the time, even if they're not the editor. And think about for yourself, if you're going to cut that video, you want to know that you have the footage you need. So the first way to shoot is to shoot for that specific edit. Which sounds like, oh, that's like so simple, and it really, when you break it down, like I was saying about thinking about all these other things we've already talked about, shoot for that specific edit. Tell the story, the beginning, the end, the intro, outro, and then what the story is in between. And then the second way I shoot is thinking about multiple deliverables, or kind of a content capture, I guess. In that case, it would be, a lot of times I get clients who look for, hey, we have this YouTube video we want, or these Instagram videos we're trying to make, but we're also thinking about in 3 months, or whatever that time frame might be, we're going to want to return to this video and this this footage, and we're going to want to rework it into some other type of messaging down the road. So on those type of shoots, we're picking up extra shots, maybe shooting in a different style. And once again, what is the deliverable? Where is this footage going to be used? So those are a few things to kind of think about. Of course, now once you're camera operating and you're on set, so there's kind of some pre-production ideas. And like I said, this isn't like a list. This is just me I made a few notes of some things I did, and I have more of a rigorous process than this, because a lot of times, and even in my experience this last week, our clients trying to get some messaging out, and pretty efficiently, because they're reopening or whatever after the pandemic, and they're really trying to be specific about what's the safety, what is the message we're trying to portray to get people back. And even for them, that information is evolving. I don't even want to say it's kind of changing, but I would say evolving, especially with how things are evolving with the information we're getting from our governors, And so be flexible, and when you're working with video and on set, or let's say you want to get into film, or, video production, content creator, you name it. And I know I probably repeat this more than anything, is, you want people to feel comfortable, and you want them to understand what you're trying to do. So all this pre-production, you can show up and say, hey, here's like a little bit of a shot list. Here's kind of what I'm thinking. And then whether it's your talent, your model, your whoever's on that video, maybe it's that dentist that we were referring to, they have an understanding of what you're thinking. And 2, you're kind of continuously checking those pre-production notes and those ideas. And, that doesn't mean you're stuck to that. That just gives you a base. So that way you get what you need, and then you can get creative. And that's kind of how I always work, and a general rule of thumb, if you don't know exactly, all the variations of shot types that you're going to need because of what your scene is when you get there. Maybe you didn't get a chance to scout the location because it was a rush video, or, your client needed it quick and you're trying to help them out, In that case, you might not have been there, so you need to do some test shots and stuff. So you can think, wide, medium, tight, get a wide shot, establish the scene, get a medium shot, get closer to the characters or, the subject, and then get tight, show some more intimate shots of what it is you're trying to show. Maybe it's a process, like I said, back to that dentist, of them prepping their tools, or, in this case, since we're coming out of the pandemic, maybe it's how they're prepping and cleaning their space. And you can show a wide to establish they're in the office, a medium to kind of show the dentist, and then something tight to show his process. So that's just kind of a general rule. I'm going in a little more detail than I anticipated, but like I said, I'm kind of just off the topping it with just a few topic ideas. So what's another one? So the other thing I'd say as once you get on production is, there is a use for handheld footage and a use for locked off footage. What I would say is if you're not used to shooting handheld or don't have that experience and understand what the kind of vibe and tone that comes from that is, lock your shots off. Steady footage is understandable footage. And I think if you can start with that, do your locked off shots, and then work in some handheld stuff, it'll work out great. So what is kind of another one? So you're on set. We're thinking about lighting. We don't have, light panels or a ton of equipment. So we'll move out into outside or close to a window. And, you get rolling, you've got your shots. Let's say you've got that beginning and end, you've got kind of the shots you need. And then, you want to move into post-production. So, and that depends, if you have experience editing or not. What I would say that if you don't have experience editing, all the things I've talked about, when you sit down to try to edit, all of a sudden you're already in a better place. When I started in video, like, it was 2020, I don't know, like 15 years ago when I was a kid, I would just kind of shoot some stuff, and then sit down with it, mess with it. I didn't have a real concept of shooting, for the edit. And then even in high school, we started making some videos, and we started having to think about, what our viewer would be. And in that experience, we created videos that kind of blasted through the high school. So I was actually able to watch other kids respond to my videos. So all my classmates were sitting there watching the videos we would create. And so I think as we went through that process, we started to learn a little bit just based on how our friends were responding. They could do differently, different ways we can edit. We were just being just silly dudes and just trying to have fun and create something that would make people laugh. And then, as it kind of went on later, obviously in my career, thinking about when it becomes client work and stuff that, people are paying you for or asking you for, now you want to get in their head and think about the messaging that they want. So, we started getting to where we're shooting, as I explained it, shooting for the edit. And, if you have that one deliverable or just one video in mind you want to do, and especially if you're beginning, focus on that, focus on the story of what that is, work those shots out. Big, wide establishing shot, medium to show your subject, macro or tight shot to show the action. And then just briefly, I'll kind of talk about frame rates. When I speak on high frame rate, I'm talking about slow motion video, and a standard frame rate is more of like standard video, like you're seeing right now. Realistic movement. My cameras are locked off, obviously. But, it has more of a real feel. When you kind of cut away to slow-mo, a lot of people just call that B-roll right off the bat, because those are going to be your supplemental shots that help explain what it is you're trying to show. So I might do a standard frame rate shot of somebody talking, so their mouth is moving while the audio is moving, and then use some high frame rate slow-mo stuff to showcase, like I explained with the dentist, maybe the tighter shots of him cleaning his tools. Maybe those are high frame rate slow motion shots. And two, you can use those slow-mos to kind of get the sentiment of a person, or the facial responses or communication that people are doing. Like when somebody cracks a smile in slow-mo, you can really feel kind of their personality and emotion sometimes. And that's really cool. Or let's say they're running and they're out of breath and it's real intense. Maybe that's a regular frame rate, where you're handheld and things are a little bit more chaotic. You're a little tighter on your subject. So you can really portray emotion just by changing your framing and then as well as your frame rate. So that can help with all these points. I mean, you're ready to sit down and edit. So then when you do sit down and edit, and like I said, there's TikTok, right? You could create videos on TikTok right now by shooting it all through your phone. And I mean, it is almost beyond too extensive. Like, you have so much to work with in TikTok. It's really insane. I mean, it's like I need more. I feel like I need weeks with it. And I've seen some good stuff. What I feel like I naturally do is, since I know my editing software so much, I've shot and then edited for TikTok, and then post it from there, and then do some in-app stuff. But I'm just used to my editor, and honestly, taking a lot of time right now to learn a new app is pretty challenging, just with us picking back up and getting busy again, which I'm very thankful for. And being on set again, shooting videos again, man, that felt great. I will say, like I said, you can hear it in my voice, probably see it on my face, that I haven't slept much in the last few days, but man, it feels good. And I will say, when you plan a video and you think about it and you show up and you leave with the footage you need, it feels amazing. And then especially once you turn that footage into the edit and the client's happy and their vision came through, there's really not much like that. I always compare it to like a championship game or something. So, moving on, then you're kind of to your edit. There's probably a ton of things I could get more detailed about that, but you kind of move into your edit at that point. So let me just see if I have a quick reference I can show you of just like, here's a variety of cuts. Okay, I'll just use like an in-house video because that is the best feeling ever. I'm telling you, I sleep so much better with that. I'll show you real quick. I'm gonna cut. If you're on YouTube, check this out. I'm gonna share my screen here and just show you a little bit of an edit. So I cut over here. In this edit, I mean, this was a simple, like I said, I'm not privy to showing client work, just, out of being respectful. And let me see here. Let me move my guy here. If you're watching YouTube, I'm just moving myself around so you can see my timeline. And I know it looks kind of crazy because I'm looking all over. I got a monitor up there, my screen share here, and IG right here. So if you're on YouTube, let me know what you think about the setup here. Looks like we got a couple people on YouTube. So anyway, here in this screen here, what you're seeing, and sorry, this might get boring for IG, but you'll see a cut I put together. It was when we were kind of like redoing the studio. I had just purchased an iMac Pro, and so it was still boxed. I had to get some shots of it boxed with the new brick wall behind it. I know I've probably been sharing that like way too much, but I'm pumped about it. So I just want to show you an example of like, here's quite a bit of cuts. I'm generally with, these in-house edits and just like making stuff for Instagram, I try to do it pretty quickly, but you can see here in this edit, how many cuts there are. And, I'm not sharing the audio. It'd be fun if I did, but you can see where I even kind of, put in some transitions. This one's a little more chaotic. I took the guys that, that were working on the studio, and kind of we did some time lapses of the brick laying. You can see here some of the brick cutting, some slow-mos. There's a lot of like moving camera stuff here. And but really the point here is to showcase, how many cuts there are in the edit. And you can see I like mixing some cutaway stuff. Like I said, this probably isn't the best example, but I just wanted to pull something quickly that I had on my computer just to kind of show off, and this application I'm working in is Premiere Pro. And just to kind of show that off. And, I intersplice myself, unwrapping the iMac, and try to tie it with the brick in the background. And I guess that's another thing to kind of think about while you're shooting your content, is visually similar items in the frame. So in this, I think I was able to make sense of the iMac Pro, that we're in the studio was being built, and then the story of the iMac Pro getting set up as we're laying bricks. And then, it kind of ends just with the camera being down. So, like I said, I just picked this up as we were building out the space, and then cut it down to just show off the new space on Instagram. You see, but you can see what I'm saying about the process of shots. You know, I have somewhat of a wider shot here, the iMac. It transitions to a tight shot, which this might not make sense if I don't tie it together with shots later. So it's the wide shot of the computer in the box, then a tight shot of his hands doing the cutting with like kind of a blown out light behind him. Once again, thinking about lighting. And then I kind of cut these weird little still frame transitions with myself looking at the camera. And all that was a pull frame from a time-lapse video. And sorry if I'm getting a little too detailed here, but, you know, that's kind of what we're talking about. So, you know, then I have, you know, our worker entering kind of with a macro, you know, silhouette shot into like some macro shots and really tight shots of the Apple logo. Like I said, this probably isn't the greatest example, but here's another thing you can mix in with your kind of beginner video, you know, and just getting going is, you know, you can do some time-lapse stuff. You know, like I said, when you come in and cut, like that dentist, for example, you can come in and cut that video and, you know, you're going to show his process. Maybe you want to speed up the parts that you don't necessarily need. Like, let's say he's opening whatever his tool packaging is and he's laying out all his tools. Maybe you do a locked off shot and you do a time lapse of that happening. And then you bump into, you know, a tight shot of the tools or of his hands using those tools and finishing the preparation. And then you can, you know, you're changing the speeds and keeping kind of it visually interesting. And I'd say, like a rule of thumb, if you're just starting to edit, what I would say, the natural thing is to, like, especially if you get shots you like, is to keep them as they are, like elongated. What I would say is put your story in order and make each clip 1 second at a time. So each clip's going to be 1 second. Put your story in order and then edit from there. Maybe some clips need to be longer, maybe some shorter, but I think you'd be real surprised. So, like, for instance, here's 3 cuts in the first second on this video. So anyway, so here's 3 cuts in 1 second. So by 5 seconds, I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cuts and a transition. So you know, you can think of that way. You'll probably more than likely cutting those 1 second clips down. And of course, if it's a voiceover or you need to show your subject talking for a little bit longer, you know, extend those portions, especially based off the information. So, you know, back to this kind of edit here, I even mixed in where I kind of bring the guys out a couple beers and then I end it. So I tied the beer in the middle, and me walking with the beers. So there's really like 3 stories happening here. It's me with the iMac Pro opening it up. It's the workers, you know, sawing down the brick and laying the brick. You know, they're laying the adhesive for the brick and then laying the brick. I cut back to the beers, back to opening the iMac, back to the time lapse of the studio being built. And then, you know, I think I end it here with the last brick being laid. And then I walk in and you can't hear the audio in this. But I say, hey, here's a couple beers, guys. And then it's a hard out. You know, so I was kind of intertwining 3 stories. And that's another thing to think about. You know, maybe there's multiple processes within the video you're trying to make. Well, you know, shoot those in a similar manner so you can make sense of the cuts. And maybe you're telling multiple stories as you're editing. So yeah, and in this case, I made a 9:16 version also and a 4:5. So, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can kind of see my setup there. So anyway, there's that. You know, now we're editing, we're thinking about those things. On the bottom here, once again, this is Adobe Premiere Pro. On the bottom here, you can see like my audio tracks. I actually muted like my main audio track, but then my music track here at the bottom. Highlight it. You know, you can kind of see even the audio wave there and how that works. So, and then there's other things in editing. I'll just kind of show you right here. Above my timeline here, you can see my mouse. These are markers. So I added markers once I laid my music in. I went in before I even put footage to the and maybe I'll do one that's like editing specifically for beginners, or this is obviously isn't a beginner example, but you can kind of see where you want to try to get eventually. But anyway, at the top here, this is another like amazing trick. If you are listening right now and you are going to edit something to music, lay your music track in your on your sequence. I'm gonna zoom in here to kind of show you. And then you want to come back and play that audio. I'll add a few markers here. So you're going to play that audio, and then you can hit M and add markers. And what the markers do, now all of a sudden you can cut your clips to those markers. Boom. So what it does is you're adding markers on the beat. So you listen to the track, boom, you like that beat there, boom, whatever. Well, once you lay your footage in now, you can, scrub and snap to those markers. So all of a sudden you're snapping your clips right into the music, and all of a sudden quickly you have an edit to the music. So you already have kind of the feel of where you're going. And maybe one of these I'll actually break down a process called automating to your sequence. So you can actually automate your music to these markers, or excuse me, automate your clips to these markers. So you create these markers, you can go up in your bin. I won't get too much in detail. I'll do another one like that, and that'll be more like experienced editing and intermediate. I don't know where that lands, honestly. And a lot of these tools and tricks, like, a lot of times you're learning as you go. I have, an education in doing some of these things, but until you're getting your hands, dirty, I guess to say, like until you're getting your hands on the equipment and you're like starting to make things and practice, you don't know, you might have an idea, but then there's nuances and things to think about. And like I said, kind of to start this, you're going to run into things you never ran into almost all the time. And like Chris had mentioned, maybe it's just the client not sure what they need, but they know they need you. They know they need something. So there's that camera setup. So I'll just go into one or two last things. So, I've been trying to structure it where I do a topic, I do a current event, and then I talk about a piece of gear. So what's our current event right now? I just wanted to quickly talk about, getting back to it, getting back to work and kind of preparing yourself to do that. Luckily we were able to kind of keep working through the pandemic, at least to some extent. There were a few weeks there where we were kind of hanging out, but things started ramping up a few weeks ago and we really started getting busy. And then all of a sudden, we're able to go and get on set and shoot some videos and do some actual client work. And, that's why I'm kind of doing it in this setup here, because all our cameras and gears are still kind of packed up. And I just didn't want to pull everything out in the case that I would need to go back and shoot later in the week. I'm kind of waiting to hear if we'll be shooting tomorrow and also Friday and possibly the weekend. So, and to give you an idea of my current project is, we just spent 2 days in production. I spent the week before that. I got the project really last Thursday and we were shooting by Monday and Tuesday, with, information kind of trickling in as we went. And then, I'm still waiting on like a VO and, so we're kind of preliminarily, is that a word? Preliminarily? Anyway, you get the point. We're just anticipating what that VO might be. So we're cutting the video now, and then, we'll incorporate the VO, and I'm still kind of waiting on like, music approval. But, the big thing is like, be flexible, ask all the questions. If you want to get work, now it's a quick moving world. People need content. They need their messaging out when they need it, and be flexible and understanding. And, it is hard work, but, hard work, I've never worked hard and felt like, man, I wish I would have worked less hard. And so there's always things you can do differently and think about. And so anyway, the current event right now is just getting back to work. Like if anybody's on here, in Nevada, I'm these phases and what that process is. But oh, here, let me go full screen back to YouTube. Sorry about that, guys. But I'm still trying to get an idea of like what that timing is. And and what, things are kind of evolving with all that, but we've been able to get back on set, and we're following the protocol as asked for us at this moment. We just spent 2 days, like I said, on set, and we were masked up the whole time. So, and maybe if somebody's on this stream or on YouTube, what state you're in, let me know, how that works going for you, and like what you're doing moving forward. So anyway, for us right now, we're shooting videos. We're helping people create their messaging post-pandemic messaging, I guess you could say. So anyway, kind of moving on. The other thing I'm kind of doing every week now is kind of gear of the week. And so since we're talking more about, if you're on YouTube, I'm going to flip to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to move myself back in the corner here. So this mic right here, I'll just show IG. I actually had it ready. This is the VideoMic Pro Plus. This is a Rode mic. It's a camera mount shotgun microphone. You can see the camera mount here. This is where you connect it. You got some options back here. I guess YouTube can see that too, but if you're on YouTube right now, I pulled it up on B&H, and I'll just give you a comparison. Really, this is a this or that kind of comparison, and the reason I brought this up is because we're talking about, getting into videography and cutting videos and making content. Wow, I'm really blown out on both. Sorry guys, I set this up so quick and just kind of got it ready. I had some notes, but not like I'm trying to do really. So, this is the VideoMic Pro Plus. It's an awesome mic. This is a great like run and gun mic. It's a great setup mic. Honestly, I've had to do interviews with this mic, just because we're in the case where we ran into somebody and we saw an opportunity. And so, actually, honestly, I'll tell you a little story here. So actually, I interviewed Ludacris with this mic, and what happened is I was shooting an event, and the event ended, and we had 3 minutes to get an interview. And I was the single videographer on the job. Was kind of running as producer too. Really, just it was an event that he kind of was the MC. It was a 2-hour event, and then we had like 3 to 5 minutes with Ludacris, but we really only got 2 of those minutes because the new local news outlets had the interview scheduled first. So what happened, and this is another thing about thinking about when you get on production, if you're getting a paid client or you're trying to get stuff done, is always consider having backups. So when I'm on set, usually I have a lav mic, and then 2 other types of camera mount mics, or sometimes a shotgun mic, depending on what we're doing. One I can mount overhead and it'll kind of like hang down. So anyway, I only had the 2 minutes with Ludacris. I had my other camera ready with my lav mic. I had kind of pre-dialed in just on my voice, and so I was close. I have my lav mic. I have one I dial in for a female voice and one for a male. And since I knew it was a male, you can have kind of a starting point with that stuff. I won't get into it. But so I had this Rode mic, and all of a sudden I was like, this, I don't know what it was, but there was interference on my lav mic. I mean, there was a lot going on. And so, instead of fiddling with that, I had already mic'd him. I quickly removed that mic. I slapped this mic on, and then I just kind of brought it in, the shot in a little bit more intimate so I can make sure that I was getting good audio. And man, it was kind of chaotic and it was crazy. I had a PR person there, and she was kind of doing the interview. And, sure enough, I threw this mic up on top and we got the shot. And actually the audio came out unbelievable. I really couldn't believe how great, I had tested it as just like a B-roll mic, and all of a sudden I pulled off a full interview, with Ludacris. So that was cool. And he was cool. He seemed cool. I mean, he's about his business. So, he really had his talking points and knew what he was trying to say. But man, when you get to that level of celebrity, the access really dwindles. They're very precise about the access media gets with those interviews. So I would always recommend this mic because of that experience and because of my experience in other productions. If you're on YouTube, I have it up here on B&H. It's $299. So, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call this, you know, a beginner mic, but that will bring me to my next mic. So kind of the step back, you know, this obviously wasn't the first mic I bought, but the first mic I ever used as like a B-roll mic, just like to have something on me, is this one here. It's a Rode VideoMic Ultra Compact camera mount shotgun microphone. And this one, you know, this moves a little bit more in an affordable department. If you're like a young creator or somebody who doesn't have a huge budget to get gear, this is a $60 mic. And I will say, so here's another story for you. So this mic, and this is another reason, you know, I wouldn't recommend something I didn't put my hands on and have experience. So I'm creating a video actually in Staples Center, and it was for a WWE event. And pretty much I was doing some Boys and Girls Club, got the opportunity to be in a suite and watch this WWE event, which actually was really fun. The kids were awesome, and honestly, we had a really amazing time. But and we were getting live in that suite. So anyway, we were very limited with gear we could bring in. They said you could bring in a camera and one mic, and it had to be low key, and it had to be something that security was okay with us getting in. You know, since we weren't the actual press for WWE, they keep their visuals and like their content opportunities really tight. So, you know, I went in with this $60 mic, and it was a Canon 5D Mark IV, a couple memory cards, a couple batteries, what I could fit in my pockets, and literally went in and did a full video with this. And so same thing, I had to interview some of these kids and some of their I guess the volunteers that were working with them and the teachers that were from the high school. And man, I pulled off a whole interview with this mic. And I think I also had a 50 mil lens. So, you know, with this, just the camera, the lens, and the mic, you know, I pulled off interviews, you know, during a live WWE event in Staples Center with this mic. So once again, I wouldn't send you to something that you wouldn't that I hadn't already had experience with. And the other thing about this mic is it's real small. It fits in anything. And honestly, the audio, it's incredible. And of course, I was able to, you know, I worked into manual mode for my audio on my camera. But anyway, we got the interview, and you know, once again, I'd highly recommend this. This is your beginner mic. So it's $60, but yeah, it's a pretty epic story. Both those stories are pretty cool. And you know, once again, like I was saying, in any environment, you know, you want to be thinking about what it's going to be like. And of course, the other thing I had, obviously, for both gigs was a set of headphones, so I could actually monitor my audio. So anyway, I'll wrap this here in a minute. Where am I at time-wise? I don't even know. Looks like we're about an hour on YouTube. Did I go an hour? Yeah, we're about 59 minutes. So I'll start wrapping it here. So I think that's it as far as gear. So that was like our gear of the week there. But both those stories were pretty cool. Also, I'll start wrapping here on IG. Thanks for tuning in, guys, on IG. If you want, I got the link up on YouTube. And like I said, we're going to do this every week, no matter what. You know, no matter the fact that we just worked for 48 hours straight or this last week's been insane. You know, I really enjoy getting on here and hearing back from people and talking to people. So, you know, you could, if you're on YouTube, you can check us out on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, check us out on YouTube. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this YouTube. Thanks, you guys. Hit me up if you need anything, want anything, or, you know, also if you're curious about being interviewed on this, you know, I'd love to have you. So thanks, IG. Let's go ahead and wrap that IG real quick. I'm gonna share that to the story, and then let me throw these headphones on, and we're gonna work to you know, kind of our outro here. So so if you're on YouTube, thanks for kind of tuning in. Like, you know, this was a bit of a makeshift one, but I think it went over all right. And you know, I don't like to do just like super specific, like let me lay it out for you, but you know, maybe on these next ones I'll get a little more specific about some of the trips and, you know, tips and tricks of the editing nuances and process. So yeah, so thanks for tuning in. If you're here on YouTube, you know, check us out on Instagram. You know, consider, you know, subscribing and stuff. We're gonna be live. You know, we're live Wednesday today, but we've done it every Monday since we started. And like I said, I'll have something live every week. So, you know, I appreciate you guys, and you know, keep making videos, keep creating stuff. You know, we're coming out of a pandemic. You know, be nice to your neighbor and all that. You know, treat everybody with respect. So cool. All right, I'll see you guys next week. All right.